Hey folks, this is Jamie, designer Avalon, and just want to spend a couple of minutes explaining some of the deeper aspects of the game. Now this here is our internal playtesting space that we use for going. We can use this for having a look at some of the closer things, and so really wanted to get into some of the deeper waters of this stuff, the interlacing mechanisms, how things work as you get kind of into the higher end of play with this thing. Now, the space here has to be forgiven a little bit because a lot of the art components here are not like absolutely complete. The colors aren't quite right, like lots of bits and bobs. So if you can be a bit forgiving with some of these bits and bobs, that'll be helpful. And without further ado, let's get into it. So today we want to cover the asymmetric factions and how things work. So you've probably heard about the symmetric factions in the game. This is allowing for basically quite a tight version of play where players can start the game without much experience and just get into the main game, because there's a lot to chew on in the game. There's a lot of meat on the bones, and you can play this quite happily at the symmetric version. And I've actually had this back from a lot of the reviewers who've kind of said, wow, like, this is I could quite happily play this game just on the symmetric version. This would give me all that I would all I'd need from this. But the idea that there's an asymmetric side where things get even deeper is very exciting, and people have enjoyed sort of playing on this side too. So this is the kind of a look into what each faction brings to the table when it comes to the asymmetric play. So let's start over here with the Knights of the Round Table. So the Knights of the Round Table is based on Guinevere bringing the knights into Avalon following Mordred through the mists. And she is the grieving widow of Arthur. She's recently lost her husband, but she believes in the prophecy of the once and future king. She believes he's going to come back, and she's going to make it happen one way or another. She doesn't just sit around waiting. She's going to go and chase that prophecy down and find her husband. So the Knights board is kind of based on a couple of different areas. So just as an anatomy of a faction board, so we can go over it. Over here you have your Lord board. This is actually split in the real version so that it flips one way or another, and it's actually triple layer if you have the deluxe or all-in version of the game. And the Lord board here can be upgraded and flipped to the new version. The way that it's flipped is through these faction objectives. This is only true of the asymmetric version. It adds a whole extra kind of like meta level objective for you to play for during the game. So the Knights, as I said, have the once and future king faction objective, which means that whenever they complete a prophecy or they gain the Grail or Excalibur, they're going to start moving up this track. And as they go up this track, they're going to be able to flip their Lord board, and eventually they're going to reveal the second side when Arthur comes back in his sort of Super Saiyan spectral form, coming to kick butt and take names. And so here he is, and the knights actually get two lords under this case. They get King Arthur and Guinevere both working side by side to lead the armies. This means that they're going to be able to do a whole bunch of stuff. So just what happens with lords is lords are able to explore regions of Avalon. They're also able to add battle plans into battles, so they can lead armies and gain this really big benefit to their combat. So having a second lord on top of this is very useful and very helpful for being able to do that. Also, Arthur is an incredibly strong strength 3 lord on his own. Guinevere has this ability called Two Arms, where she's able to increase the strength of your armies in regions if you pay some power to do so. And this is really valuable in terms of if you get into a situation where you're maybe 1 or 2 strength behind the enemy, which often happens in kind of like the tightness of the armies and the battles. So and in this game, if you're 1 strength behind your enemy at the end of a battle, you lose that battle, and so they get the enemy here would get the artifacts, get the big victory point wins, and you wouldn't, even just for the sake of 1 strength in it. And so having this ability to close that gap very quickly with this +2 extra strength from the Two Arms ability is super valuable. And King Arthur himself brings this giant strength with him as he comes out the mist, bringing all the power of the lady with him. The other thing that happens with this Lord board is when this Lord board is flipped, you actually get an upgrade to your what we call the mount ability. So every Lord has a basic ability, and if we swap back to the original side, you can see here that the ability there was kind of a single move, gaining a favor, a card, or a deploy. This is super valuable. There's a lot of kind of being able to fill in gaps in your strategies and plans with these abilities that are on your faction board and on your mount. So all hope is not lost if you can't find exactly the right thing you need, or if you really desperately want to play a certain card, but you can't actually get this 1 extra effect to go this 1 extra little way that you wanted to secure something. This is where this is really valuable for doing that sort of a once per season augment to your normal turns. And that's what you see with these things. This is what the abilities are. These little crosses. They're once per season abilities you can use before or after the card you play, and you can use as many as you want in a turn. So, as I said, the lords, when they upgrade, they're all going to get this increased power. So they get a much more powerful mount ability to start with, which is a boon, and then they all have this unique lord effect. So that's the faction objectives and the lords, and we'll do a whistle stop tour of those as we go to the other factions. The other thing is that nearly all the factions have a unique all of the factions have a unique settlement of some kind. They're special abilities. So these settlements here, for instance, they have the Great British Longbows, and all of their settlements are 2 strength here. That means they've got a lot of kind of condensed power in the regions, helps them increase their max strength. And max strength is super valuable in this because, as we said before, if you are just 1 strength behind your enemy, and you will lose the battle rather than win it. And so this game is a game of kind of like leapfrogging each other. We're just trying to get this little bit more strength in a region, but not overcommitting, because if you overcommit, then your enemy you may get huge amounts of strength in one region, but it won't actually you won't actually win the war, because the enemy will be spread out into other places to win these other regions and take advantage of your lack of presence over there. The other thing that's kind of limiting that, which is valuable, is the region limit and how many units you can have in it. So you can't have too many. So settlements are a great way of getting extra strength into a region where you've already got the maximum amount of strength, because you can only have 5 units in every region. So these are great ways of increasing that. When you do settle, actually, you're going to see there's a bunch of extra things that happen when you settle. So when you get a settle, you're going to get victory points to be able to place extra dudes in that region, and you're going to get those guys spawning every single season and getting you extra victory points, as well as an extra bit of victory points at the end of the game. So these are great, like, harvesting kind of things that let you kind of harvest a region, get a load of victory points, as well as actually giving you potential rewards over here on the game board. So you can see here there's like a reward for settling here first. We'll talk about that in another video, but this is some of the benefits you're going to get from these sort of unique settlements. And then lastly, over here we have the faction powers section. So this is the knights and their faction powers. So this symbol represents power. As you go through the game, through various ways, you're going to be going up here, gaining power, and you're going to be able to spend that power on some of your abilities. We've already talked about Guinevere's one over here, where she gets to spend power to gain strength. Over here, they're also going to gain this effect called chivalry. So in chivalry, the knights have something special. They are the only faction in the game that have uniquely named knights. So each of their knights actually start off unrevealed. Like it's not decided at that point. They haven't been revealed who they actually are, and it's not until you actually place their banner on them and they actually wave their flag and kind of show who they are, that they will actually become these specific knights. So Galahad, Gawain, Percival, Lancelot, all the classics from the Round Table thing, and each one has its own unique ability, which is kind of adapted to the kind of the lore of the characters. So Galahad here, the Grail Knight, the more artifacts you have here, you're going to be able to get loads of victory points if you win a battle with him. So if he wins the battle, he's going to get a big influx of victory points for power, which is very useful. Gawain here, he's got this desire to advance the kingdom, and so as where in his region, he can let you move out in this region. Now this symbol here means you can move all of your units in a region and spread them out across regions that are adjacent to it. So this is a super powerful move ability, and if you do that from a settlement, they're going to get a bonus as well, because it's going to cost you nothing rather than cost you power to do it. Percival here, he's great. He's got this slay the beast ability. So in this case, like, he wants to go on a quest and he wants to go and take out some big beasties. So whenever an enemy bonds a mythic beast, you can basically interrupt their turn with this deploy action, where you basically drop bomb Percival and a couple of warriors into that region to contest the strength of that beast in that region, which is pretty useful. And then you've got Lancelot himself, like the legendary jeweler, the great sort of flower of chivalry and martial prowess. And so his thing is that he wants to go and hunt enemy heroes and challenge them to a duel. And so if he's present with an enemy hero, you can basically pay a power to force a card number on somebody. If they don't discard that exact card number, they're going to lose that hero in the region. So there's actually a tiny bit of take that there, but it's very useful for the knights to have that. And but it's something that can be countered with discarding a card from an enemy, so they can sort of stop the worst of it. But if you catch them unaware, you catch them at the right time, you might be able to get rid of a hero there in the enemy's region. So this is a bit of the idea of the knights, what they're going to. They're named knights, powerful settlements, the once and future king, faction objective leading to the reveal of Arthur and having 2 lords, which means you can explore more regions and get into other places more and be able to play more battle plans in other regions. So these are pretty cool. Now let's go and have a look at the undead in juxtaposition. So Mordred is leading the undead here. He doesn't have many friends like Arthur and Guinevere and the knights. He's just got a big stonking horde of skeletons who are going to be spawning around the board in this massive horde kind of mechanism. So at the start of the game, Mordred has this ability called the Enmity of the Shattered Sun. So he has been shattered by Excalibur, and he is very upset about it. He is livid. And so what he's going to be doing, he's whenever he's in a region with an enemy hero, he's going to gain an extra strength. So he's a bit of a beast already to start with. He gets that mount ability we talked about, and his faction objective is Mordred Ascendant. So his journey that he wants to go through the game is he wants to revive his shattered form. He wants to reform himself, and he knows if he can drink enough magic from the land of Avalon, if he can eat enough monsters, if he can gain enough power, he will be able to ascend and reform himself into this Mordred Ascendant. So that's basically every time you place an altar of bones, which is the undead equivalent of a settlement, every time you gain an artifact, you're going to go up this track, and once you reach the top, you're going to flip it over, and Mordred Ascendant is going to come out. And yeah, he's ready to kick the butt and take names. His abilities are very powerful then. So he gets this Lord of Death ability. This allows him to teleport around the board. So what you can do is Mordred has this crazy power where he can kind of gain extra strength from eating monsters over here. And so he can start gaining these strength tokens, placing them down on his board, and he can start getting stronger and stronger as he eats more mythical beasts. You can add artifacts to him as well. He can gain Excalibur and the Grail, and he can start getting loads of strength from different positions around the board. And so you can start to see he can get very, very strong. And then once you've loaded him up and he's the big bad, you can actually teleport him around the board. So you can fight in one battle, and then you can teleport him to another region where some of your skellies are, and he kind of explodes them, sucks all their magical power out, and he uses it as a gateway to teleport himself through to that region. And so he fights in a second region for his full power. So you lose a bit of strength in losing the units, but you're going to gain a load of strength from Mordred himself as he kind of gets powered up, and he gets to play again more cards into battle as he's that Lord ability where the normal warriors and things can't. So very powerful to be able to teleport. And the main power of this is the strength that he brings, but it's also the fact you get to choose this after the battle in which he played, which means it's after everyone else has positioned themselves. And this is very valuable because you can then pick and choose exactly which region further on in the list you're going to end up in, and that allows you to swing battles more in your favor, being able to bring a bit more to bear, maybe catch up in places you were behind where everyone thought they were safe. It's a super valuable kind of ambush attack that he gets to bring, which the other ones don't have access to. Then let's go over to the settlements. So over here we have the settlements of the undead, and these guys have this very cool little mechanism, which is the Altars of Bones. So the Altars of Bones, these guys, instead of having 3 settlements like most of the others, they have 6, and this happens that every time you win a battle in a region where there is no Altar of Bones, you get to make an Altar of Bones, because basically what's happening is whenever you win, you're dragging all the bodies together, you're piling them all up, and you're making a giant kind of magical cursed altar that you can start summoning infernal hordes from, using the sort of bale pyres to your advantage. So this is a way where they're going to get these extra deploys. Their deploys aren't quite as strong as the other ones. They don't deploy 2 units each, they deploy 1. But what they do get is this ability that whenever you deploy at all, for any reason, to a region with an Altar of Bones, you're going to get an extra warrior. More warriors, more warriors, more warriors. And there's actually this ability down here, Raise Undead Horde, that lets you deploy more warriors as well as a standard action as well, getting more and more out every turn. So these guys also have this ability where they have 14 warriors rather than 10 to begin with, and that means they've got more base strength they can bring out. They can just bring this larger horde of things, so there's a danger there. They don't have the name Knights of the Undead, but they do have champions as well that are very powerful, and they have this kind of giant horde, and Mordred himself teleporting around the world, being a bit of a badass. So over here on the faction powers, we have this ability here, Corrupt Land. This is going to help you get some more of your settlements out. So if you're not winning lots of regions, you can still force these settlements out using settled cards. And settled cards are great actually to use anyway, because they give you a bit of an advantage, because without using them you may not get all 6 out, and so it's good to kind of get these settlement cards being used that let you deploy in multiple regions. So these are the only faction that get to deploy 2 settlements at a time because of this Corrupt Land ability. They also get these ability, this Shamble ability. They can move from an Altar of Bones, so the more places you have Altar of Bones, the more mobility and access you have to the wider game state by being able to move these factions and these armies out of the region to places that you need to get to. Then you have this Consume Magical Essence. This is what we were talking about earlier, where he can gain these permanent strength tokens by winning a bid for a mythical beast. and when the beasts pop up, the game stops, and there's a bid for this beast. Everyone tries to send kind of envoys to go and gain the allegiance of this beast to try and tame it or control it or curse it or whatever it is that each faction is trying to do. They're trying to get hold and get control of this beast, and the magical essence ability here means that if you win one of those bids, you can actually, instead of bodying it, you can kind of eat it. Mordred can just suck the magic power out of it and give himself a permanent strength token for the rest of the game. You still get the victory points for it, and it doesn't count against your maximum for being able to have like one mythical beast per season. So this is a good way of kind of like gaining a big benefit from extra wins. Also, you deny a beast from your opponents, which gives you an even more of an advantage if you can kind of stop your enemy getting hold of those very powerful beasts as well. So because that's Consume Magical Essence, then we have Unholy Dominion. This is going to give you victory points for each of your settlements as you kind of spread and cast yourself out over the land. And then you've got this Raise Undead Horde ability, which is that you can use this every single turn for power to generate more and more and more. And because it's one warrior, to where you have an Altar of Bones, because the Altar of Bones ability says down here that you get a second warrior whenever you deploy there, you're going to get 2 for every 1 power you spend here, and that's going to help you get this horde army up. So big horde, big powerful Dark Lord type, and then these sort of special settlements that kind of come out through the things. So quite fun difference. You can start to see the asymmetry here is quite significant between the two different factions, and they play and feel very different when you're kind of going through the game. Now then over here we're going to go to the Druids of Merlin. So Merlin's got this this cool power with the ability to place ley lines down throughout the game, and so what we're going to do here is you've got this. Merlin is kind of on Avalon to try and keep the peace, maintain the balance, and to be able to protect the land, because the corruptions of Mordred, the evil that he brings, can destroy and wither the magic that is in the land, and so he wants to try and protect it as best he can. And so he's going to be doing this by laying down these waystones and ley lines that are going to be able to reinforce the magic and be able to get benefits for him and his faction as he goes. So Merlin at the start, let's talk about Merlin himself. He is the ancient seer Merlin, so he has this quite powerful ability that after revealing cards in battle, he can either redraw one of the combat cards he has, which allows him to basically turn a failure into a non-failure or get a little bit closer to the maximum strength, which is very valuable, and that's after things have happened, so you can it's almost like he's seeing it before it happens. Or he may add a bonus card instead to the thing, which increases his maximum, and again may stop that ability. That's also kind of used for the deterministic play, which we'll talk about in another video. But yeah, so they've got this core ability, and then he's got his faction objective is the Sacred Site. So with the Sacred Site, what he's trying to do is they're trying to place these ley lines down, and the more ley lines you place, the further up this objective you're going to go, and eventually be able to get the faction objective. Now, before I do that, I'll explain how these ley lines work. So basically, there's a little explanation down here. So whenever you have a unit in a region, you have presence there, you have strength. So wherever you have strength, you can either spend a power, which you gain from various sources, or you can discard a settlement card. And when you do, you can place a ley line down onto the board. And these ley lines will go around the board and be able to have one per region as you go. And so you're basically spreading out a network across the board, and these things are quite powerful because they already have one strength, so they're equivalent in strength to a settlement, and they also reveal a bonus, so that when you place them down, you get these bonuses as you go, and that's very valuable. Not only do you get these bonuses, when they're placed, you also get them at the beginning in the mist phase, which is at the beginning of every season. So you're going to gain a sort of big glut of bonuses and rewards for having this giant kind of like ley line of power that are placed around. So you've got 8 of them. There are 9 regions, so you're not going to place one in necessarily all of them. And as you go down the tracks here, you're going to unveil these bonuses, get this stuff, and it's going to empower your settlement in the mist phase, as I said. The other thing you've got to see here is there's kind of delineation for every two ley lines that are placed. And what happens is every time you place an extra set of ley lines, you're actually going to unlock your faction abilities as you go, and these are very powerful abilities that kind of happen as you place more and more of your ley lines down onto the board. So this is so up here we have Travel the Ways. This ability is pretty cool, where you get to deploy to your ley lines rather than to your settlements. So they only have one settlement, but these guys have 8 different positions. So their actually ability to deploy to many different places on the map is very strong, and they get a really great ability to get places fast and to sort of teleport in through the traveling the ways created by the powers of the leyline system. The other thing they can also do is you can spend a power here to actually deploy to unrevealed regions. So it's both basic level, it's actually only to revealed regions, but you can override that with power to deploy straight into other ones, which can be pretty useful as well, allowing you to do stuff like teleporting into the middle or teleporting into specific regions. If you can't get there with your lords, like naturally or something like that, you can sort of teleport straight in. And that's very helpful for you kind of reaching prophecies and being able to gain strength and positioning. Then we go down here, we have Master of the Mist. So this is a Merlin specific ability that allows Merlin to move to any region, so he can teleport himself around as well, even after he's deployed. And even to and from unrevealed regions. So he gets this great mobility there. We then have the Raven Summons. This is going to allow you to deploy units and extra units to Merlin or to the Ancient One, which is where your settlement is. And then we have the Astral Convergence. This is going to allow you to actually move into and basically teleport and warp into your into where your settlement is specifically. And the reason that's quite useful is because your settlement can move. This is the objective. Once you get 6 of these ley lines down, you're going to be able to place to flip this over, and you're going to get the you see in the background here the great Ancient One rising. So what everyone thought was just a settlement down here actually turns out it's on the back of a giant ancient beetle, and this beetle can rise up and actually start to move around the board. So it actually comes off of the board. You get all your normal bonuses and things. It comes off the board and can start moving around as a strength 3 mythical beast that's completely indestructible. And this is where some of these abilities come in, because you can deploy to that region, and you can also have this astral convergence, so everything can converge on it and teleport to where it is. So as you move it, you can then teleport on top of it, and that can be very useful when you're trying to position your units ready for battle. So the Druids have an kind of extreme form of being able to position themselves and get themselves strategically like that, where some of the others may have more brute strength. They may be a bit slower and not quite as mobile, where these guys have quite a lot of this mobility coming through. There's also the Vortex of Power ability, which then the Ancient One gets. So all this power that we've been gathering through the ley lines, it will eventually come good, and you'll be able to use it, spend it to destroy one warrior in every adjacent region to where this is like a giant magical vortex hurricane that sort of goes around. So it doesn't affect the eye of the storm where the Ancient One is, but it does kill warriors. So if you've got this guy over like here or something, you will be able to kill warriors in all 5 of these adjacent regions, which is a huge kind of huge benefit. Not a massively swingy, but it is very cool to be able to get that kind of effect of knocking down the max strength of all your enemies by 1 in all those regions, and clearing the board of some of their units that they've been deploying. So as you say, the Druids, their kind of thing is they've got this really powerful single settlement, unlike the others that have multiple settlements, and you also have this ley line system that you can place out, which gives you loads of mobility, and Merlin's seer abilities coming through, where you can kind of like have that power of foresight over your battles and things as well. So that's the Druids. And then let's move over to the last of our main 4 factions, which is the Fomorians. So the Fomorians, these guys have come from the deeps, and they were once a kind of a race of giants and ancestral beings that have been forced from the coasts of Ireland and forced into the sea, where everyone thought they had died, but they didn't. They adapted, and they managed to survive in the waters, and they made pacts with dark things deep down, and they have now kind of risen up to come and destroy Avalon and bring it down into the deeps. So with them, so there's a lot of this sense of a kind of anger and bitterness and a destructive rage that they want to bring to Avalon, and we're going to see that in some of their abilities. So to start with, their lord here is Baelor, and Baelor is this sort of giant cyclopean Fomorian who has this ability of pure adaptation. And so one thing they get is that whenever there's battle plans discarded during the combat phase, they are going to be able to. He's going to be able to take any one battle plan that is discarded and take it into his own hands, so he can basically learn from his enemy and be able to take their card and use it against them later on, which can be very valuable. One, giving you this extra card, which is important because there's an extreme focus on kind of card economy and resource efficiency in this, but also being able to pick and choose a particular effect you're able to use in your battles as you go. And the faction objective here is summoning the Leviathan. So the Fomorians are trying to kind of pull Avalon down into the sea, and they're going to do this by settling on Avalon. So whenever they settle with these settlements, they're going to move up this track, and also if they ever win battles in coastal regions, they're going to go up this track. And what's also good is that wherever you have a settlement, it also counts as a coastal region. It's called this watery domain of the Fomorians. So basically, the more settlements you have, the further up the track you go, and also if you win battles in those regions, you're also going to get that, as well as the coastal regions here, the 4 outer regions of the board. And so this kind of, it represents their advance and dominion into Avalon, gaining more and more land and power, and sort of turning it into this aquatic kind of like domain. So the other benefit they get from this is that they will, as they go up this, they're going to make this kind of settlements into coastal regions, and the other thing is then they have this free ability, this free move, which is quite useful, that allows them to move from one coastal region to another, and this allows them to effectively teleport an army between these coastal regions, because they've always got these kind of like subterranean kind of like watery caves that they can move through quickly and pop up in different places and ambush people. So there's an ability there that is kind of a growing ability as they go, which is a fairly significant move. And as they go up this thing, they're eventually going to be able to unlock their lord board. That's going to flip over. They're going to get this benefit, as we said before, and they're going to have the giant Leviathan here with the tentacles coming up, and you're going to have the Leviathan itself, this giant creature is going to come out. It's incredibly powerful. So the Leviathan has a quite unique ability. The Leviathan doesn't deploy to the board like many other units. It actually deploys to the sea. It doesn't deploy to one of the regions. And when you deploy it, you have to choose a cardinal direction. So here's north, east, south, and west. And so you choose one of these cardinal directions to put it in. And when you put it there, it will it's going to basically preside over that area and be able to attack all the regions in that quadrant. So a quadrant region, in this case, for instance, would be these 3 here, would be the quadrant for this version. So you actually choose carefully where you put it, and it's going to add strength to every single one of those battles, which is super valuable for increasing your match strength. You're going to get this huge sort of benefit to having a Leviathan on that quadrant. Not only that, but if you have actually managed to settle the region as you go, then if you settle any one of these regions, it's going to show that you've kind of pressed into Avalon, started to bring down some of the land into the watery ways that you want, and then you're going to be able to stretch that dominion to the center as well. And so you can have up to 4 regions that get this bonus strength from the Leviathan, which is super cool. So it's huge impact, massive creature, adding, like, currently under the balance is up to 8 strength, because it's 2 per region, which is pretty good. As well. And so a very different kind of very different feel to the ancient one and to the many different like mythical beasts that we have in the game, everyone having its own unique abilities and asymmetries. So that might be actually worth talking about in that in a minute. But first, I'll just get to this the actual asymmetric faction powers. So one of the cool things about the Fomorians is they have this tidal system, which is quite enjoyed. So what we have is the turning of the tide. Is that the tide starts at high tide, and every turn it moves down the tidal system, and it unlocks certain abilities. So you get 1 passive and 1 active ability every turn, and it's only available whilst you have the tide on that region. But not only do you have that, but you also have the ability to manipulate that tide by spending power. So if you want to, you can try and move this thing up and down various amounts of spaces if you're prepared to suffer the consequence of paying the power to change the tides. But if you can make this flow perfectly without that, and you can kind of pick your turns carefully, make the right decisions and things like that, you can get moving up and down these tides and gain these benefits as you go for free without having to pay any power to do it. And these powers are pretty advantageous. So from the deep allows you to deploy more whenever you play a card with a deploy icon, and you can have tsunami. This is the high tide, so this allows you to destroy 3 enemy warriors. It's a massive kind of wave comes in, crashes over a region, destroys a bunch of warriors. And as we said before, having 1 or more power really flips things in this game, and it can be quite a big kind of thing. You're always trying to push for this max strength push to get that extra bit going, and having be able to destroy 3 warriors is going to move that by 3. It's quite expensive abilities, you can see by the power cost here, but that's going to get you quite an advantage in a region. Then going down here, you go to mid tide, and that's when you get the surge coming. So this surge ability allows you that basically for every cut, whenever you play a card from your hand, depending on its initiative, you're going to get a specific bonus, an extra move, more favor, more power. These are super valuable rewards that you get, but it has to coincide with the right card that you play from your hand, so you'll kind of get even more of a benefit of playing the right card at the right time, depending on what it is you want to be doing. And then the active ability here is Despoil. This is going to give you this chance to explore and basically gain all of the exploration rewards. So let me give you an example here. Over here you can see the middle, and this has 4 different exploration rewards on it. And when you would explore this with your lord, you'd normally get to pick one of them, and you choose which one you want. But in this game, when you do the surge, you get all of them. When you get Despoil, sorry, you get all of them at the same time, which is super valuable. But again, can only be done when you're at mid tide. And then at low tide, you gain access to Scavenge and Encroach. Scavenge is going to let you place an extra artifact on the board in a region of your choosing, and that's quite valuable in terms of it brings a new kind of battle point into the game, brings more artifacts into the game. And you get the advantage of being able to pick where that is. And so if you've kind of like doubled down in a region, you've got yourself set up nicely, maybe on the last turn, you kind of just sneak in a sneaky artifact, you're going to get extra. Very, very useful for that. And then Encroach, you've got this is really about your settlements here. So it costs a bit to do it, but as you do it, you get basically place your settlements for way cheaper, and then you get a whole ton of victory points. You kind of really harvest this thing as you encroach on the land and push it and change it to warp it to your sort of aquatic desires. You're going to get a load of victory points for doing that, and that's a really good way of sort of generating those VPs that are ultimately going to win you the game for whoever has the most. So guys, this is the sort of 4 asymmetric factions, and you see they're very different feels and things. There's a mini game with each one. There's a different play style with each one. Really kind of trying to embody some of that lore of Avalon. And I think what we'll probably do is actually maybe we'll do another video with some of the other asymmetric factions in a bit. But for now, that's going to give us a good roundup of the asymmetric factions in Avalon. Cheers, guys. See you on the next one. Bye.